On a cold November morning, a mother said her car broke down on the way to the hospital. Her 2-year-old son was sick. She left him strapped in the back seat and walked to get help. But when police arrived at the scene, there was no car, no child. No sign of a struggle. Sky Metalwala had vanished, in broad daylight, from a busy suburban street. His mother's story unraveled almost immediately. Her phone never used to call for help. Her car in perfect working condition. And the biggest twist of all? The entire scenario matched the plot of a recent TV crime drama, almost word for word. 10 years later, Sky is still missing, and the people who know what really happened have stayed silent. This is the disappearance of Sky Metalwala, a case that starts with a simple lie and ends in a mystery that refuses to die. Before the headlines, before the sirens, before Sky Metalwala became a face on a missing child poster, he was just a little boy, living in the shadow of something much bigger, something far more dangerous than anyone realized at the time. Born on September 6, 2009, Sky Elijah Metalwala came into the world in the quiet suburbs of Washington State. To the outside world, his parents, Solomon Metalwala and Julia Biryukova, seemed like any other young couple. Two people trying to build a life together in Bellevue, a clean upper-middle-class city east of Seattle. But beneath that suburban calm was a volatile relationship on the brink of collapse. Solomon was the son of Pakistani immigrants. Hard-working, ambitious, and deeply religious, he managed a string of gas stations and dreamed of running his own businesses. Julia, originally from Ukraine, had moved to the U.S. as a teenager. She was beautiful, artistic, and somewhat mysterious, with a deep passion for painting and a strict belief in natural healing and holistic lifestyles. They met in their late teens and married not long after. For a while, things seemed good. They welcomed their first child, a daughter named Mail, and soon after, baby Sky. But as their family grew, so did the cracks in their relationship. Julia reportedly struggled with mental health issues, depression, anxiety, obsessive behaviors. Friends and family later said she was becoming increasingly withdrawn, paranoid, and erratic. She worried constantly about toxins, germs, and the dangers of modern medicine. She refused traditional treatments, avoided doctors, and insisted on keeping the children in near-complete isolation, sometimes for weeks at a time. Solomon, meanwhile, tried to keep the peace. But by 2010, their marriage was crumbling. Accusations flew in both directions: emotional abuse, manipulation, controlling behavior. Julia claimed Solomon was aggressive and unstable. Solomon said Julia was unwell and unfit to care for the children. Their fights became so intense that police were called to their home over 24 times. Then came the breaking point. Julia moved out of their shared home, taking Mail and Sky with her. She filed for a protection order and accused Solomon of abuse, claims he denied repeatedly. In return, he filed his own petition for custody. What followed was a bitter, drawn-out custody battle. And through it all, Sky and his sister became pawns in a war neither of them could understand. Court records from that time paint a heartbreaking picture. Julia was increasingly isolated, refusing court-ordered psychological evaluations and missing custody appointments. She accused her husband of being dangerous, while simultaneously withdrawing from nearly every effort made by the courts to mediate. Solomon, on the other hand, was pushing for joint custody, trying to prove he could provide a safe and stable home. But the tension didn't just stay in the courtroom. Behind closed doors, things were deteriorating fast. According to multiple reports, Julia began keeping the children inside her apartment almost full-time. She was so fearful of the outside world, of illness, of interference, that she allegedly stopped feeding them properly. She claimed they had food allergies and rare illnesses that required strict diets and intense care. But there was no medical proof, just her word, and her growing fear that someone, maybe even the courts, would try to take them away. Solomon later said he barely saw his children during that time. Sky, especially, seemed to be wasting away. At one custody visit, he appeared thin and pale, Another time, Julia didn't bring him at all, claiming he was sick. Then she stopped bringing either child to visitation entirely. By the fall of 2011, the court had enough. A judge ordered Julia to comply with the parenting plan and resume visitations. The very next day, something unimaginable happened. Sky vanished. According to Julia, she was taking Sky to the hospital early that morning because he had a 104-degree fever. But her car ran out of gas on the way, so she claimed she left Sky sleeping in his car seat and walked with mail to a nearby gas station. But when police responded to her call, there was no car at the location she described, and no Sky. Just a mother with a strange story, a missing boy, and a past full of secrets. It was early on a Sunday morning, November 6, 2011, when Julia Biryukova placed a 911 call that would trigger one of the most perplexing missing child investigations. In recent memory, her voice was calm, almost too calm. She told the dispatcher that her car had run out of gas on 112th Avenue Northeast in Bellevue. Her 2-year-old son, Sky Metalwala, was asleep in the back seat. She didn't want to wake him, she said, so she took her 4-year-old daughter, Mile, and began walking nearly a mile to the nearest Chevron station for help. But when officers arrived at the location she gave them, there was no disabled vehicle, no sign of a stalled car, no toddler. And when they finally did find Julia's car parked near the address she gave, it wasn't out of gas. In fact, the engine worked perfectly fine, and Sky was gone. Right away, the details didn't add up. Julia claimed her son was ill, running a dangerously high fever, and that's why she was rushing him to the hospital in the first place. But according to the police report, she never made an attempt to call 911 for medical assistance. Not before she left the scene, and not after she got to the gas station. In fact, she didn't even buy gas. She borrowed a phone and called a friend for a ride back to her car. When detectives asked why she left a sick toddler alone in a car, unattended and unprotected, she said she thought it was the safest thing to do. But it was 38 degrees outside that morning, and the car wasn't running. Then came the most disturbing detail of all. No one besides Julia had seen Sky in over 2 weeks. Investigators worked quickly to retrace Julia's steps that morning. They pulled surveillance footage from the Chevron station. They checked traffic cameras and canvassed local businesses. And what they found raised even more questions. There was no sign of Sky in any video footage. Julia had made no effort to get help from the gas station. And according to phone records, she hadn't used her phone that morning to call anyone. Not 911, not a friend, not even Solomon, Sky's father. Police began to suspect the story of the car breakdown wasn't just inaccurate, it was fabricated. When questioned again, Julia became evasive. She refused to take a polygraph test. She stopped cooperating with detectives altogether. She hired a criminal defense attorney and refused to speak publicly about Sky's disappearance from that day forward. While the disappearance shocked the public, those closest to the case, including Sky's father, weren't surprised. Solomon Metalwala had long feared that something like this might happen. For nearly a year, he had fought in family court to gain custody of his children. He raised concerns about Julia's mental health, her reclusiveness, and her refusal to seek medical care for the kids. On multiple occasions, he reported that Julia had denied him visitation and had kept Sky isolated from the outside world. At one point, Solomon said he feared Sky was being neglected, possibly even starved. In fact, just months before Sky vanished, a doctor had documented that the toddler was severely underweight, weighing only 19 pounds at nearly 2 years old. But each time Solomon tried to bring it to the court's attention, he hit a wall. Julia produced paperwork, made allegations of her own, and delayed proceedings again and again. Then, just the day before Sky disappeared, the court issued an official order, compelling Julia to cooperate with shared custody. That order meant Sky would be spending time at Solomon's home again, unless something happened. As the investigation deepened, attention turned to Julia's mental health. Court documents from the custody battle revealed a disturbing pattern. Julia had been diagnosed with obsessive-compulsive disorder, including symptoms that made her fearful of germs, toxins, and the outside world. She refused to use medications, banned processed foods, and once claimed that even plastic containers could poison her children. She was also reportedly paranoid, believing people were watching her, following her, trying to harm her family. And though multiple professionals recommended she seek psychiatric help, Julia never completed treatment. She instead relied on natural remedies and distanced herself from nearly everyone, including family and friends. Some believed she was spiraling into delusional thinking, a woman convinced that the system was out to take her children away, and willing to do anything to prevent it. As news of Sky's disappearance spread, internet sleuths and reporters made a chilling discovery. Just 2 weeks before Sky went missing, Julia had reportedly watched an E. As the investigation into Sky Metalwala's disappearance dragged on, with no physical evidence and no cooperation from his mother, only one question remained. What happened to Sky? Law enforcement, journalists, and the public began circling around. 3 dominant theories, each as heartbreaking as the next. The accident theory. Some believe that something tragic happened to Sky before that November morning. That Julia, overwhelmed, isolated, and struggling with her mental health, may have accidentally caused harm to her son, whether through neglect, illness, or an unintentional injury. Afraid of losing custody or facing jail, she may have tried to cover it up. This theory gained traction due to the lack of sightings in the days leading up to Sky's disappearance. No one, not neighbors, friends, or even Solomon, had seen Sky for at least 2 weeks prior. It's possible, detectives speculated, that Sky was already gone by the time Julia made that 911 call. The story of the broken-down car may have been a calculated attempt to stage an abduction, to buy time, create confusion, and deflect suspicion. The darkest theory suggests that Sky's disappearance was deliberate, an act of desperation from a mother on the edge, facing a court order that would force her to share custody with the man she accused of abuse. Julia may have believed that losing her son physically was better than losing him legally. Some believe she may have taken Sky's life to prevent the court from giving him to Solomon. Others speculate she may have given him away to a trusted friend or underground network in order to keep him hidden forever. Supporting this theory are the chilling similarities between Julia's story and an SVU episode that aired just weeks earlier, where a mother fakes her child's abduction in a nearly identical fashion. Was it a coincidence? Or a script she followed? Though less supported by evidence, some still cling to the hope that Sky was taken by someone else. Perhaps a passerby saw the unattended child and made a snap decision. Or perhaps Julia arranged to meet someone that morning, someone who took Sky and disappeared. But police have never found any witnesses, video footage, or tire tracks to support this theory. It remains the least likely, but the most hopeful. To this day, Julia has never been charged. Sky has never been found. And Solomon continues to ask the same question he's been asking for over a decade. Where is my son? Until someone talks, or evidence finally surfaces. Sky Metalwala remains a name on a poster, a face frozen in time, and a mystery that haunts Bellevue to this day. More than a decade has passed since Sky Metalwala vanished on that cold November morning. He would be a teenager now, his face unrecognizable from the toddler in those faded photos. And yet, the world still waits for answers that never came. No charges, no body, no goodbye. What remains is a haunting silence, from the woman who was last to see him alive, from the justice system that couldn't break the wall of secrecy, and from a community left wondering how a child could disappear without a trace in broad daylight. Sky's father, Solomon, still holds on to hope that someone somewhere knows the truth, that one day the silence will crack, a memory will surface, a conscience will break. But until then, Sky's case remains suspended in uncertainty. A mother with no answers, a father with no closure, and a child lost in the shadows. If you know anything, even the smallest detail, Contact the Bellevue Police Department. Because Sky deserves more than mystery. He deserves to be found. He deserves the truth. Share Sky Metalwala's name. Share this video. Because awareness keeps cases alive, and silence lets them fade. Someone out there knows what happened, and even after all these years, it's not too late to come forward. If you have any information about the disappearance of Sky Metalwala, no matter how small, contact the Bellevue Police Department or submit a tip through Crime Stoppers. You can remain anonymous. And if you want to see more real cases that deserve answers, subscribe and turn on notifications. This channel tells the stories that still need to be told, for the victims, for their families, and for the truth. Thank you for watching, and for not forgetting Sky.